Welcome back. Now, on this show, we're all about shining a light on amazing people who do amazing things. And this week, on World Bipolar Day, we're meeting the author who's raising awareness for bipolar, Janey Robbins. So Janey's husband, Simon, unfortunately took his own life after years of battling the illness. And following his death, Janey gave up her career in nursing to embark on a full-time 3-year university course in journalism and photography. And she's now gone on to publish a book. Here it is, Black Confetti, My Bipolar Marriage. And I'm delighted to say Janey joins me now. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for being with us. And congratulations for being our greatest Briton this week. Now, look, tell me, it's a very long story, isn't it? There's a lot of avenues, but essentially your ex-husband, Simon, everything was fine, it was great, you were together, you were married, and then he went to Glastonbury. What happened?
He'd had the tendency to suffer with depression, but after Glastonbury, he came back in a very heightened state. He was agitated, talked very fast, had lots of ideas, and spent lots of money. And he was just really, really on a high. So
what was he like before Glastonbury?
He was quite a lively personality anyway, and he was quite funny and animated. But there was a normal level, whereas after Glastonbury, he went to kind of +10.
And before that Glastonbury trip, how long had you been together?
13 years.
And there was nothing of this at all before that Glastonbury?
Depression, definitely. He'd had quite a bit of depression before.
So he then developed, I mean, I'll let you tell the story, but he then developed what you know now as bipolar. Can I ask if he... And excuse me for asking this, if he did drugs at Glastonbury that may have... Because there's a theory that these conditions can possibly lay dormant and they're triggered by certain drugs. Did he do drugs that Glastonbury trip?
He did.
And do you equate that to his subsequent behaviour?
I think it was probably a major trigger for his first mania. Yes, I do.
So what was life like after that trip?
Crazy. We had 3 years of cycles of a mania followed by a deep depression and then some normality. And then as each Glastonbury occurred, he'd kind of go up again. He did have a hospital admission where he was diagnosed bipolar. And in the 3rd year was his worst mania, and he had a psychosis and lost touch with reality. And the problem was that he didn't think anything was wrong with him. He didn't believe he was ill. And it wasn't until the 3rd year after this psychosis that he came home one day and said, I think you're right, I've got bipolar and I need help. And I was delighted, because I thought, brilliant, with help,
you've got an answer.
We'll be OK, everything will be fine.
As his wife, obviously you loved him very much. How did you deal with that emotionally?
With great difficulty, yeah. Yeah, obviously it tore me to pieces. I struggled to cope with it, but I also tried very hard to make sense of what happened. So I did a lot of research, I looked into why people commit suicide and tried to understand it. So, yeah, very difficult.
Is there enough coverage of bipolar in the media? Do you think people understand the condition enough? Are we sympathetic and empathetic enough to people with mental health conditions?
I think mental health is very much out there today, as it wasn't kind of 25 years ago. But I think bipolar is misunderstood. It used to be called manic depression, and I think you understand what manic and mania means. And what happens, people can be very depressed, but then they can go to such a high, they feel amazing and they quite like being in that state and don't want to return to kind of normality and depression. And
what did writing this book, we've got to hear, Black Confetti, My Bipolar Marriage, how was that for you? Was it therapeutic, documenting your experience?
It was very hard, because I really dug deep and I looked very deep into suicide and things like that. But it has been extremely cathartic. But my main aim of doing it is that I will hope that perhaps it might save one person's life, or maybe be helpful for a family who are going through that situation, and particularly for survivors of bereavement by suicide, like me.
And crucially, Simon did end up taking his life.
He sadly did.
After, how long had you been married? 13 years?
No, longer then. We've been together about 20 years.
So where are you now? So you went through that experience, you've processed it in this, quite amazing and thoughtful book. Where are you now? What does your life look like?
I'm happily married.
You remarried?
I remarried.
Oh, fantastic.
The book ends on a very happy note without giving it away. I met my husband, Ben, in a swimming pool. And, yeah, life is good. I live in the country. I've got a little dog, 25 chickens, and I'm OK.
How did you go about the recovery process for yourself after not only Simon's bipolar, but his eventual, the quite tragic conclusion?
Well, I went off the rails a bit, honestly. Burnt the candle at both ends, got pneumonia, pleurisy, fractured 4 ribs, and...
How did you do that?
Crashed, just by not looking after myself. Lots of coughing, fractured the ribs.
Wow.
And I kind of had an epiphany once I recovered and said, I'm going to give up my nursing job. And I went to university and did a degree in journalism.
So, yeah, that's the silver, the light at the end of all this. You went back to university. How long did you study journalism for?
3 years, full
3
time.
years. And why journalism and photography in particular?
I'm so shallow.
Thank you. Thank you, Janey.
The truth is because I wanted to go and do a degree.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll do an arty kind of degree. I just fancied that. And I went to the local university, prospectus open, and it said journalism. And I thought, I can interview people.
Yeah.
I like writing.
Do you think that helped you grieve Simon and get over that experience? Taking your mind off something and doing a degree?
I think it did. But interestingly, with the book, I thought I'd done my grieving, but I hadn't. And since writing the book, people in the book, my loved ones, my dad, my sister-in-law, Simon's sister and brother-in-law, have all died. And it was then, when they all died, my grief for Simon came back.
Wow. Do you still think about Simon now?
Yeah, very much.
I guess it's something you'll never forget.
Not at all, no.
And just briefly, for anyone watching now who may be suffering from bipolar and their families or, any other associated mental health condition, have you got any advice for them or words of wisdom to help them deal with it?
Yeah, I would just say go to your GP. There's lots of things online, lots of charities that you can phone up. There's often people at the end of the phone.